Our story is Fireball by Aidan, Jeremy Callahan, Stephen Scott, and Alex Unello. It is not who we are on the inside, but what we do that defines us. Batman. It was an ordinary day in 8-year-old Pablo's house. He was at home with his sister Maria, his brother Alejandro, and his mother. There came a knock on the door. A man came to the door and handed his mother a file and a folded American flag. Pablo saw the man's sleeve lift up, and he saw a strange tattoo that looked like a snowflake. But he forgot all about that when he heard the news. His father, who was deployed in Pakistan, had passed away in a mysterious fire that took the lives of 23 people. No one knew what had caused it, as the building had many safety measures. His family had grieved and had been thinking about what their life without him would be like. His father was supposed to return from Pakistan in 2 months, and he was eager to finally see him. He realized he would never see him again. He went through high school but dropped out of college. He later joined the military to honor his father and serve his country. Pablo is 23 years old, is 6'1", and weighs 187 pounds. He has just returned from Iraq, where he was severely burned in a fire caused by a mortar shell hitting his sister's house and bursting the gas lines. He barely made it out of the house alive and inhaled a lot of gas and smoke. The amazing thing about this event was that he was fully healed in 2.5 hours. After this event, he started to feel hot all the time, and things got stranger, much stranger. Right now, he is in his home city of Santa Cruz, California. He is walking down Front Street. He's eating a taco he bought from Las Palmas Tacos Bar down the street. The day is one of the hottest. He walked past the park and was overwhelmed by the noise of the children around him. He walked through the park to get water from the water fountain. He leaned over and splashed water on his face, but the water turned to steam the moment it touched his face.
Pablo left the park and was walking down the street when all of a sudden he heard kaboom. He started to see smoke, and he ran towards it. As he was running down the street, he heard people screaming and yelling about people dressed in black burning down a building. When he got to the burning building, he saw 3 men leaving in a black car laughing. He took a photo of the license plate. Pablo rushed into the building. He heard a man banging on the door and yelling. Pablo kicked down the door and saw the family inside. He escorted them down to the bottom floor, but just when they were almost out of the building, a burning beam fell in front of them He told the family to stay behind him and used his powers for something. Pablo had never used his powers. He reached out his hands and focused with all his might and mind and parted the flames. Pablo had never used his power for something so big before, just cooking up leftovers and extinguishing a match with his mind. The action exhausted him, but he kept going. He and the family made it out of the burning building. They thanked him, but didn't ask how he had parted the flames. Pablo ran home to his apartment and slammed the door. His hands were glowing. He clenched his fist, and when he opened them, a fireball was hovering over his palms. He worked all night trying to control it. By morning, he could adjust the size of the flame, turn it on and off, shoot it at the wall, and hold a steady flame. He left for work at the local Nails hardware store. He didn't own a car, but he could walk there easily. On his way to work, he saw something familiar out of the corner of his eyes. The car. He was sure it was the same black car that he had seen the men get into the day before. He looked at the driver and saw a big man about 30 years old with a long scar down his neck and a tiny snowflake tattoo on his wrist. As soon as the driver saw him, he started the car and zoomed away. Pablo ran after the car and caught up with it. He shot a fireball at the wheel but missed. Pablo was still not fully in control of his powers and shot again. More carefully this time. Crash! He hit it. The car spiraled out of control and crashed into a streetlight. Pablo ran over and saw no one in the driver's seat. He turned around and saw the man with the scar run down an alley. Pablo ran after him. He turned the corner and bumped into a large metal trash can. He kept running down the alley until he made it to a tall fence. The man was trapped, Pablo thought. And just as he started to catch his breath, the man jumped the wall and landed on top of the fence. Give it up. You'll never stop us. You don't understand what you're getting yourself into, said the man. As he was talking, Pablo saw something fall out of the man's pocket, and in the blink of the eye, the man was gone.
Pablo ran over to see what the man had dropped. He leaned over and picked up a white card with a symbol and an address on it. The symbol resembled a snowflake. At first glance, one would say it was an ordinary snowflake. If you were to study it, you would see that each tiny section contained a date. Pablo ran home and looked up each date, and he discovered that each date corresponded with a fire that no one ever solved and in which many people had died. These people, Pablo thought, must have caused all these fires. For what reason? Why would anyone do such a terrible thing? Then it hit him. He had seen that same symbol before, a long time ago, when he was 8 years old. And a man came to the door and told him his father was dead. Pablo was furious, and he couldn't contain his fire inside. He screamed. His arms were on fire. It was at this moment he learned the true extent of his powers. He heard a knock on the door. How could he be so aloof? It was the landlord. He opened the door and tried to explain that it was his oven acting up. The landlord did not believe him, but left anyway. Pablo realized he had to find some clothes that would not burn up when he used his powers. Luckily, his sister Maria worked at the Santa Cruz Fire Corps Company just 2 miles away. At the Santa Cruz Fire Company, they engineered protective suits for the military and for firemen. This would be perfect. Pablo decided to take a tour of the facility, but slipped out halfway through. He entered a large warehouse-like room with wooden crates labeled Flame Shield Prototype. He figured this was what he needed. He waited until a van filled with boxes left and jumped in just as the doors closed. He waited for the van to stop and open the back, grabbed the crate, and jumped out. He landed softly on the side of the road and rolled behind a trash can. The driver did not see him, and he relaxed. He called a cab and went back to his apartment. He burned open the lock and opened it up. Inside was a suit made of orange and gray material with thick boots along with Kevlar pads, also a rope-like harness. There was also some kind of helmet. It looked like a mix between a hockey mask and a helmet a pilot would wear. He put it on, and he felt it channel his powers into his hand. He made a fireball, and for the first time ever, the fire glowed blue.
He knew he was not ready to take on the man with the snowflake tattoo and the rest of his people, so he decided that he would practice his power by stopping house fires and small crimes. After about a week, people started to notice that they took to call him Firebolt. Everywhere he looked, he saw news reporters about the city protector. He knew it was time to take the fight to the man with the snowflake tattoo. He went to his desk and got the card. He found the address was for a warehouse 3 miles away. He shoved his suit into a duffel bag and closed a tab. He arrived, putting all his stuff in a duffel bag and climbed up a ladder into a roof. He peered and saw 4 men standing around a case that contained what looked like some kind of weapon, connected to a large tank. Pablo burned a small hole in the glass and heard the man with the scar say, "This will make destroying a building easier than lighting a match."
The other men agreed. Pablo didn't. Pow! He crashed through the glass and landed hard on the tile floor. The men turned around and Pablo dived behind a thick metal column. just as a bullet flew past. The man with the scar picked up the weapon in the box and shot a strange clear foam out of it. The foam instantly turned to ice. Pablo sidestepped and shot 2 fireballs, each one hitting a man. 2 down. He ran forward but was stopped when a ball of ice hit him in the chest. If it weren't for his Kevlar pads, he would have broken a rib. He made his left arm catch fire and shoved the third man into a table and faced the man with the scar. The man shot him and covered him with the ice before he could get away. Pablo was trapped. He focused as hard as he could and felt the fire within him. He engulfed his entire body in flames. He broke the ice and hurtled forward, grabbed the barrel of the gun, and hurled it across the room. He threw the man against a wall, and he fell unconscious. He tied the man up and went through a dark wooden door into a smaller dark room. He made a small fireball and saw the room was filled with various explosives. He looked around and found a note on top of a desk. He read it. The note told the one thing that Pablo had been missing: a motive. The men were destroying buildings to make a statement, a protest, if you will. He learned that these attacks were meant as proof of everything that was wrong with the world. The men wanted to show the people that everything they had could be taken away in an instant. He looked down to the bottom of the page and saw the list of successful strikes, but one caught his eye. 1994, the day his father had died. The men had killed his father in the fire that took the lives of 23 people. He was furious and began to catch fire, but he had learned to control his power. And if catching fire in here would be devastating. He heard sirens outside and slipped out the back door.
Our story is dedicated to the victims of the forest fires in California. We may not have powers, but we can still pray for and support the victims of the forest fires. And most of us don't know what it's like to have everything taken away from us, so we must try to reach out and try to prevent the pain of the victims of the fires.